Hey everyone, today's nighttime lecture is brought to you by Pretend from the Gardens by the Bay in Singapore. In this political anthropology lecture, I talk a little bit about nationalism, authoritarianism, and fascism, all very important topics in the political climate of America today. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of authoritarianism. An authoritarian worldview encourages strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. And this can be an authoritarian religious leader or political leader, but we're going to discuss it in the context of politics, right? So an authoritarian government is a government in which individual liberties are secondary to the demands of the state. In other words, the state, through its laws, through its policing, through its military, is able to control the rights of the citizens and demand, even at times if arbitrary, complete obedience. So the most extreme form of authoritarianism is totalitarianism. This is all encompassing, and it means that all aspects of your daily life and society are controlled by the state. There have been various totalitarian regimes throughout history, but at this time, there is only one truly totalitarian regime, and that is the Kim regime in North Korea. That's the only example that we have where we have complete and total control of the state, where the state controls every aspect of your daily life, and there's absolutely no freedom whatsoever. No freedom of speech, no freedom of assembly, no freedom of religion. Like the leaders themselves are the actual gods. There's no ability to speak out against them. If you do, you disappear. There are prison camps. Like, it's the full total package. That is the only place right now where we have totalitarian regimes, although we do have authoritarian regimes in other countries. None of them are all the way out to totalitarianism. Now, when we talk about democracy, there is a common assumption that democracy and liberalism go together. In other words, that democratic states are free because they have free elections and people will vote in their best interests. However, in a seminal essay back in 1997, Fareed Zakaria, and you might have seen him on CNN as that IR guy, this is the theory for why he's IR guy, right? So in 1997, Fareed Zakaria argued that there was a trend towards illiberal democracy. In other words, democracy with elections where people would vote and actually choose leaders that were not going to lead them well, choose leaders that were going to take away their rights. And so we would actually see in the 21st century, he argued, democracies where people elected authoritarian leaders. That was about 22 years ago. And here we are. So in the United States, we have at this time an illiberal democracy. We have elected leaders who are not working in our best interests, and it is possible that we have elected leaders who are moving us to full-scale dictatorship and tyranny. So let's talk a little bit about fascism. You've probably heard about fascism in the news a lot. It's a term that is thrown around a lot in social discourse, and that's why I wanted to define it. So it is specifically tied to nationalism, love of your nation above all other, but it is extreme and it is authoritarian. In other words, it says you must love the state, you must obey the state, you must be happy to obey the state at all times. It is tied to national pride, and national pride becomes a concept where obeying the nation and loving the nation are synonymous. So fascism is a far-right perspective. It is anti-liberal. It is about suppression through violence, dictatorial authority, and it is very focused on things like manufacturing, commerce controls, promoting big business, the military, anti-immigrant rhetoric, and xenophobia and ethnocentrism. Now, some of you may have heard the term Antifa, anti-fascism, and I wanted to define it so that we could understand what this concept is. Mark Bray is the leading historian and anthropologist who works on Antifa in the United States, and he argues that it is a political philosophy of social revolution. It is pan-leftist, which means it includes a wide variety of perspectives and ideas, and its goal is to fight far-right fascism. However, this term is often used with a capital letter, like it's an actual organization, like equivalent to the KKK or Al-Qaeda or ISIS or something like that. There's no actual organization, Antifa. Like there's not like a headquarters, there's not like a pamphlet pamphlet. You can't like go and find its leader and negotiate with it. There are Antifa movements around the United States, Germany, France, the Netherlands, elsewhere in Europe. But the idea of Antifa as a specific terrorist organization or as a specific organization that can be tracked by the government, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, I'm a political anthropologist. I study political groups. There is no singular organization which is Antifa that the government needs to fight. It simply doesn't make sense to even describe it that way. It's this amorphous concept. So the idea of fighting it as if it were a singular organization simply doesn't make sense. So it's a pan-leftist political idea, but it's not actually a specific group, even though our current government acts like it's a group. Regardless of your opinions or ideas about Antifa, we should all agree that fascism is a bad thing and we don't want more of it. This list here, which is on display in the National Holocaust Museum, explains some of the early warning signs of fascism, and all of us should work as hard as we can to prevent fascism from occurring in our own society. All right, everyone, we've reached the end of lecture. Thanks so much for listening.